Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I'm going to get into an in-depth analysis on the epic gold foils from Conclave and from Rebellion. And I want to look at the price points and what seems like fair value versus high value, low value. And the reason we want to ask this question now is because we're looking forward to Mage Wagons coming with airdrop points from the Conclave set. And I hear from Blaze KOS that these new airdrops are going to be amazing. They're going to be exceptional. And personally, I believe them. Maybe you don't, but I do, and I'm thinking long-term for Splinterlands, so I want to prep myself for the maximum reward possible. If that sounds interesting, stick around. Otherwise, maybe check out the next video. Let's do it. Okay, so we're going to come over to Peak Monsters, and we're going to look at... I've already been doing this, by the way. You know, I'm looking at... I came into Peak Monsters, and I'm thinking, you know, are there any... First question is, are there any cheap gold foil legendaries? And I don't really know what cheap is. That's one of the conversation pieces. We should start we should set the stage with the fact that price is not the same as value. Value is what you get, but price is what you pay. I've said that on the channel before, and I think I need to keep saying it because I'm not sure everybody gets that reality. If the price of Cranix the Quick is $67.80 for a gold foil legendary, is that an amazing price? Well, doesn't it depend on whether or not Cranix the Quicks is a good card? Doesn't it depend if it's a terrible card? And so the value of the card, the utility within the game, affects the price point, the logical, justifiable price point. And if somebody was selling Cranix the Quick for $1, even if it's a terrible card, that's an amazing price. If they're selling it for 20 bucks, I think even if it's a terrible card, it's an amazing price. And because of the value can be outweighed by the price, you have to reconcile the two. And so, you know, the question, it's hard to determine what's cheap, but you can do a few things, and I've already done it with legendaries, and I don't really think there's any cheap ones. Now, Cranix the Quicks might be in that 30, 67, 80, might be in the range where it starts being really logically worth it. The points that are going to come from something like this on the Mage Wagons are going to be meaningful. But here's my deal. I don't actually like this card. I actually got one of these gold foils. Reckless, Final Rest, Impede, Backfire, and Affliction. Reckless is a great ability. I think we're going to really like seeing how that works in conjunction with Painforge monsters. And, you know, this is a death card, so it's going to be able to be brought in with Razi Clank, whatever Trap or whatever her name is, meaning she can bring all gnomes with the Painforge, and then his Reckless can cause damage, which is great. That's a good synergy. That makes a lot of sense. Problem is, I don't like the rest of his kit. Limited hits, low speed, one attack. I don't love this. Yes, it's only 6, but I don't love this. So for those reasons, I don't want it. Now, I actually think this might be the sort of, it could be value. It could be value from a Mage Wagon perspective, but I'd rather have a Mage Wagon value from an airdrop point perspective in conjunction with in-game utility that I'm proud to hold long-term. And Cranix the Quick is not that. Now, Maka Hemlig for $70 might be. These are bigger price tags though. So I'm not going to spend this whole video on legendaries. This is just, I actually want to move away from legendaries now. These are the cheaper ones. I just want to say the conversation has to begin with legendaries. You don't just want to look at epics in isolation. I'm going toward epics because I think they're the best value for price. I think I can get the most number of units for the best entry cost, plus the cards are amazing, plus other reasons we'll get into in a minute. But we need to set the stage by where are the legendaries. And so Maka is a maybe for me with that 4-bomb and the opportunity. That's a great combo. And 70, again, I think, is it worth 100 once the airdrop points are really kicking in? I kind of think 100 makes a lot of sense from a Conclave legendary gold foil airdrop point conversation, especially if it has any in-game utility. And my argument would be that Maka is actually it's actually a quality card worth owning, even at level 1, even at level 2. At level 3, it gets a scavenge, which is even better, but never mind. And so Inept Healer might be the same conversation for me. 73, probably yes, because of that corrupted healing. And I won't go any further because they're starting to get more expensive. And frankly, I think we can do better with epics. There's some great cards in here, and I'm not saying you don't want them. I'm just saying, again, looking from the angle of long-term value, Mage Wagon hold, airdrop points, as well as in-game utility. It's really these three or none of them, in my opinion. And so if you had the budget to kind of buy a few, I would be looking at these for sure. And then you can minimize your number of spots on your Mage Wagons and maximize your points. But for most of us, it's actually the trickier bit is finding value cards that we want to hold, that we can afford, that aren't going to break the bank. And $70 can usually be too much for some people. So we'll move away from legendaries now, and for the rest of the time, we'll focus on epics. And what I did primarily so far is, so we highlight Conclave, we highlight Epic, we're looking at gold foil, and we need a window over here for Conclave, Reg Foil, Epic. So we can see the price differentials. That's one of the variables that I want to, that's one of the ways I want to measure the price to value ratio. And then one other angle that we can really look at it, and I already mentioned this, is that we can look from Rebellion. If we're looking at Rebellion, you could look at Rebellion gold foils or regular foils, and I think you're going to see probably 2 other pieces of data. Both of them could be valuable. So that's like 3 different pieces really, or if you call them legendaries, 4 different pieces of data that can help you ascertain whether or not a certain Conclave epic card is priced well, low, high, where. And then from there, you know, do you want it is another big variable, and then you can choose to snag it for your own usefulness as well as those airdrops. That's what I've been doing, and I've already picked up some. I've been looking at, in particular, I'll tell you quickly, I've been acquiring Leolin Sifu, copies of that around the $1.90 mark. I did buy a bunch of Warwall Juggernauts around $1.90, and it looks like maybe I overpaid because they slipped down to $1.60 earlier today. And that's okay. You know, it could go down further. My view is that this is a very strong card. So, you know, I'd just rather have it than not have it is really where my head is at. I feel the same way about Blazebeard Merc and Lucky Longshot. Those are cards I feel I need to have. As well as, frankly, Hodler. And those are the only ones I've really, for sure, made my opinion on. There may be some other winners in here that I haven't really seen. Like Aurora Elemental with its Protect could really synergize with the white team. But I don't know that I'm fully on board with it in terms of needing a maximum one. And Arenduriel, nah. Not saying it's bad. Molten Elemental, interesting, but again, not gonna rush out to get that one. Or Umbral Elemental, same deal. Like, these are quality cards. Maybe this one is more intriguing to me, frankly, than some of the other ones. Songgale, because it has Reckless. Again, Reckless can be procced as a dragon, can be procced alongside a lot of different monsters, and that Reckless is going to activate Painforge buffs. And then it also has Bloodline Tribute. And now the Dracoshan race or bloodline has only recently sort of been hammered out, and to my knowledge, it isn't as vast as maybe some of the other bloodlines, but I still think that's going to be powerful. And I think the Dracoshan get +1 speed from one of the summoners, the bloodline summoner, if I recall correctly. So, anyways, interesting card. 3 damage with 7 with the taunt and a relatively large high hit pool. The Enrage and the Bloodline Tribute. So the taunt with the Bloodline Tribute is a nice combination. With the Redemption, by the way, is a nice. Those all work together. And then you can bring Resurrects and, you know, double Redemption, triple Redemption, double Bloodline Tribute, or triple Bloodline Tribute. So for those reasons, I like that card quite a bit. That's a strong maybe, but I don't exactly. I can't afford everything. So I've got to focus fire. And to me, so far it was Warwall Juggernaut, Leolin Sifu, and finally the beard himself. This card is just too crazy. The next one in my sights is Lucky Longshot, and I will max someone out. I think it's going to be very meta with the 3 mana and the double weapon train. Sure, it only goes 2 archery, 1 magic, but they both weapon train. That seems really, really meaningful to me. In fact, I trust that it is, and so I think this is going to have to be a must hold. So let's go back to, now you know some of the targets I'm looking at. Let's focus on Beard and Lucky Longshot. How do we ascertain whether or not these price points are reasonable? The price points on the marketplace right now. These are the most expensive epics from this issue. Yesterday, Blazebeard was $5 per BCX. Now it's $2.90. Is $2.90 a good deal? How do we decide? Same with Lucky Longshot. How do we decide? Well, one thing we can do is we can look at their gold foil comparisons and see what sort of differential we're getting there. So if we come back over here and we look at Blazebeard, it's 21. It's 2180 for a gold foil. If we went like this, we wanted to buy 10 of these, because I'm talking max. I don't want a middle of the road. If I want to max Blazebeard, it's 290 on the gold foil. If I want to max Blazebeard on the reg, bulk buy, I need 46, $1.78. So it's really only, so check this out. It's only $50 more. Is that right? $41 more to get the gold foil. So right there, that affirms for me that the gold foil is relatively, either the gold foil is low priced or the reg foil is high priced. I think it's maybe a combination of both. Probably the reg foil could slip down a little bit, although I think the utility is ultimately going to hold its valuation where it's at. Plus, I want to say that epics are the scarcest, or it seems like they're going to be the scarcest of this set, and therefore, you know, I have a strong opinion that holding these is wiser than maybe even holding some of the commons or the rares. Even if the commons and rares can be really, really powerful, just because, yeah, scarcity. So, to me, $3 is probably my first thought or theory would be that the $3 mark on the regular foil is a logical, reasonable price point, which means that $180 for a max copy of this is actually a good deal. I think we're going to see that on the reg foil is going to be a good deal, but that makes this $220 an amazing deal on the gold foils. And so today, actually, I bought 10 copies of the Blazebeard around $21 or something like that. So I'm not selling them. I bought them to merge them. This is not me hyping my bags. I'm going to keep that card forever. It's just, it looks too good with the 5 damage, with the charge, with the pierce, with the bloodlust. This thing looks bananas. And I think especially in, well, actually, you know, there's so many situations you can triage this incendiary down. I think the explosiveness of this thing, oh man. And by the way, throw Nidhogger in there and put a blast on this thing. Lights out. So this card is nasty. And so I'm not talking about trying to pump this. I'm trying to keep this forever. And I think it's that good. So I think this actually is a good price, $220. How do I further test that? We can come over here and we can look at, for instance, the gold foil rebellions. The best gold foil rebellion epics rather, are in that price range of like 22, 25, 25. This one doesn't even have a single BCX for you to look at. Oh, it does, but it's somebody's just being like, nope, $200. But like, I mean, Captain Fellblade is an exceptional epic, and for a long time, this thing has been leading the pack in terms of the epics on the Rebellion set. And so, if you said $25 is a reasonable, I think it's probably reasonable. That's what the market value was recently. Somebody bought it for $25. But I would argue that that's a reasonable price, actually. Like, it's a strong card for a lot of reasons. And even today, this would be a fine card for $25. You can compare that to some of the legendaries from the Rebellion. And you can see that the cheapest of them is like $50. So I think the best epic for 25 or the cheapest legendary for 50, I think, again, to me, Fellblade in that 25 plus, we've seen Rebellion sit in this window for a while. Like, the prices have been really stable. So I feel like 25 is like probably appropriate or even low for Fellblade. And that all helps me better understand that 21 per unit or 21.95 per unit on the Blazebeard is actually a very appropriate and reasonable price point. Now, they're different cards, and you can make that whole argument. They're different splinters, they're different, damage outputs, etc. Totally different utilities or use cases. But I would say that Blazebeard is going to be used, and I don't think this card's going to be niche. I think this card's going to be broadly applicable with dragons, with fire teams, with a multitude of fire summoners, and in a multitude of rule sets. I think Blazebeard is an exceptional card, and I really think that we shouldn't sleep on it. So that is now another point of information that helps me believe, at least, that my theory that 21 or $22 per unit on the Blazebeard is reasonable. We can keep going. We can look at the lowest of the epics. This is another data point. The lowest of the epics from Rebellion is in the $9 range. So if we're trying to understand finances, card utility, and Mage Wagon functionality and rewards, then we should recognize that Rebellion are going to give us 50% of the airdrop points that a Conclave card is going to give us. So if I have an epic gold foil Conclave card, and I have a 2 epic gold foil Rebellion cards, those The 2 and the 1 will give me the same amount of airdrop points. 2 of the Rebellion will give me 1 of the Conclave rewards. Now, if you understand that, you can see that Red Worm Hatchling, which in my opinion is a crappy card. Like, this is a crappy card I've talked about before. The speed is slow, and yet it has dodge. That's weird. 1 speed with dodge makes very little sense. Dodge is going to help you irregardless or irrespective of whether or not you have 10 speed, 1 speed, whatever. Yes, dodge is a flat rate to avoid. But when I'm trying to build an evasive team, I usually want to build a fast team. So it's incongruent. Then it has the slow speed, which is complemented by the True Strike or corrected by the True Strike, which is great. You're not going to miss with True Strike. But I just think, I just don't get it. Where is the function of this? It's an archer with no close range. It doesn't have a huge hit point pool, and yet I just don't get it. What's the use of it? Oppress is interesting, especially as we've seen so much more, weapon train and non-attacking units being used. But again, I don't get it. I don't think it synergizes. I don't think it's, a very powerful card. And clearly people are selling it for a price point that is low for those reasons. So all that said, I don't like this card from a utility standpoint or from a long-term investment standpoint. So yes, do I like it from a Mage Wagon airdrop point perspective? Of course. Let's look at just that one variable. If we wanted to buy 2 of the Red Worm Hatchlings, we're going to spend 16 or something. Yeah. See, it's $8 per BCX and there's 3 there. So I could buy for $16, I could buy 2 of the Red Worms, or which is going to be the same as 1 of the Blazebeards. It's going to be the same as 1 BCX of Blazebeard. So if all you care about is airdrop points, Blazebeard is not. That is one metric that I've just shown you where you can start to say, well, maybe 22 is a bit high. So again, the conversation is this complicated, nuanced conversation where there's these multifaceted ways of analyzing your investment. And you can say, 22 is amazing because I like this card. 22 is amazing because I think this will be one of the best from this set. 22 is amazing because it'll be functionality in, survival, gold foils come back faster, or tournaments or guild brawls. Gold foils are, have this greater use. Gold foils on Mage Wagons take up less space, meaning they give you more points per unit of space that you fill the Mage Wagon with. There's just a lot of reasons why you might say 22 makes sense. But then this shows you that you could buy 3 of these for $24. 3 BCX for $24 right there. And what would that do for you? That's actually 50% more airdrop point than that Blazebeard, and for $3 more or $2 more. So this is the tricky bit. I would argue Red Worm Hatchling is only valued at this place because of the airdrop points. I think this card I think it sucks. But then let's move away from that bad example. What about Infernal Firestorm? This card I use sometimes, at $9. So Executioner Cron, I use this card a lot. Actually, I like this card a lot. So now we're a $9.40. There's a $37 unit with 4 BCX at $9.39 per BCX, or per CC, as the new terminology goes. And this one card with 4 CC in it is going to give you essentially the airdrop pointage that would be provided from having 2 of the Blazebeards, the gold foil Blazebeards, at less than the price of 2 of the Blazebeards. So this is $37, and 2 Blazebeards is going to cost you $44. So, this is where you start to, do you have a Cron? Do you have an Infernal Firestorm? I don't think Avarice Deus is worth our consideration, in my opinion. Cool artwork though. Harbinger of Chaos. I don't love him, but he's a maybe. If you want to build out your Rebellion set and you haven't yet, these are worth considering for sure. Red Worm Dragon in that conversation. Cursed Harpy, no, probably not. Maybe for some small situations. But Red Worm Dragon feels like a stronghold. Thanalorian Scion I use a lot, but look at the price. $22 per BCX. So now we're going to pay the same for this as we would for a Blazebeard, which is going to be in the Modern League longer. Again, looking at all the functionality, the in-game utility, the long-term hold perspective, the even the scarcity, the collectability, the modern league functionality, and the airdrop point returns. I think all those reasons say if you're going to get some Rebellion cards for less than $9-10 per BCX on the epics in particular, that's worth considering. And what about the legendaries, by the way? Quick side note with the, I think if you saw Rebellion legendaries in the neighborhood of 35 right now, that would be a strong buy. But otherwise, I'd be looking at trying to snipe legendary Conclave cards, in my opinion. But let's focus fire on the epics here and not get too distracted. So I think that tells me that Blazebeard's, if you like this card, if you like the functionality, if you like the the usefulness, and you want the airdrop points, plus you got the budget for say $220 to get a max copy, I think that card's going to be an exceptional long-term hold, and I wouldn't be surprised if that price goes up. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a $30 card in the the coming weeks. It might be weeks. It's going to take some player-based growth for that to happen. But I perceive that there will be player-based growth, especially as we see SPS kind of hold the line and go up from here, which is my prediction. And so, right or wrong, we'll find out together. But those are my thoughts. And so for those reasons, I went out and bought 10 of the Blazebeards. I feel the same way about Lucky Shot, by the way. And Lucky Shot, now it's a very different card, but I feel the same way about it. Like, I think this card is going to be quite meta. I think it's quite powerful. And we can do the same thing. I don't want to spend as much time on it. I feel like I've shown you the strategy, but let's quickly do the same with Lucky Longshot. Lucky Longshot, we want to get 10 of these. What would happen? We're looking at $191 to get a max copy of her at the gold foil version. We back out of Blazebeard. And you should do this for the cards you think are the value ones, for the levels that you want. Like if you're playing at gold or silver, measure out the amount of BCX that you would need and see what the price points are. It would be, in order to get 46 of these copies, you're going to pay $138 on the regular foil, and for the gold foil, you're going to pay $191. That's a bigger differential. There was a $42 differential on the Blazebeard between reg and gold. On the Lucky Longshot, we've got a $138, call it $140 to $190. That's a $50 differential, and it's actually a greater proportional differential too because the numbers are smaller. It's probably it's damn near a 50% increase. It's really, it's probably more like a 40% increase on the price, something like that. 35%, something like that. So big increase on that price. I would argue that it's still reasonable. Like if the gold foils are, my first note on this, if the gold foil is less than double the price on the reg foil, it's a good deal. Why? Because in survival alone, the gold foils come back twice as fast, right? So there's that alone is a major. If the gold foil, if I'm thinking survival and I'm expecting the rewards in survival, which are quite meaningful. I know we're taking a break from that, but I think we're going to launch survival 2.0 and it'll be even better. So my vision, my expectation, my plan, and therefore I want golds when I can. Plus, in Mage Wagons, which this video is largely about. Every card, if you want to buy cheap cards, and then that means you need lots and lots and lots of Mage Wagons. That has a cost in and of itself. The Mage Wagons break down. You need to build new ones. So for all those reasons, I'd rather have more high quality cards and fewer Mage Wagon spots. The gold foil is part of that picture. And so I just gave you two good reasons why I would want the gold Lucky Longshot, survival sustainability, or like recharges or whatever you want to, like the faster it comes back, and also the lesser spaces with more points in fewer Mage Wagons. So unless it's double, which it isn't, because it's $190 versus 138. If it was 280 for the gold foil, I would be like, well, hold your horses. If it was 300, I'd say, maybe not. But even this to me, first thought, great price. Because it's not double what the regular foil is. But again, how does it compare to some of the Rebellions? Again, at $19 was it? 19 per BCX, 19.10. There's only one, maybe. I'm not even going to count the Palace because that's just literally, the price point is irrelevant. It's like the last copy. But I mean, is it essentially, do we believe that a card like Lucky Longshot is going to be, on a utility in-game perspective, as good as the best rebellion epics in the game. Captain Fellblade, Thanalorian, this serpent who I can never pronounce his name. Do you think Lucky Longshot is among the best epics in the game? Do you even think it's among the best epics in Conclave? Maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you think some of these other ones are going to be better. That's a conversation you got to have for yourself. I just believe Lucky Longshot's going to be really powerful, and I want it. And you got to figure that out for yourself. I think Leolin Sifu is going to be exceptional as well. I would like to have this conversation on the gold foils for her too, but I did buy a max reg foil on that already. Same with Warwell Juggernaut. But you can see, and then I would want to go through and I would want to look, just like I did before, at some of the lower ones. If you're looking for this because you want a weapon trainer, well, maybe I don't think there are any other weapon trainers. What about Ironhood? Okay, so Dalthin Ironhood. It's a different weapon trainer. It's a Rebellion card. It's going to give you airdrop points in the right. So then maybe I'm okay just getting this one instead of if all I'm looking for is in-game weapon training utility. You gotta look at those angles. And this one's relatively, it's cheaper from a gold foil perspective too. You could get a 2 BCX right there for 28. It's $6 more or $8 more than you're going to spend on the single unit of Longshot of the gold foil version. And so I would argue that Lucky Longshot is going to have its different utility with the 3 mana being a Little League compatibility with the double weapon train with the yes, only the 2 archery and the 1 magic. But I think that's a big deal. I really think that's a big deal. I don't know. You got to decide these things for yourself too, which ones are the most functional, the most useful. And I think whenever you're analyzing the marketplace, you should do this multi-pronged consideration, looking at the reg foil versus the gold foil price differential, looking at Rebellion versus Conclave price differential, looking at the most expensive versus the least expensive on that tier, that rarity that you're considering, whether it's epic or rare. What's the cheapest rare versus the most expensive rare? What's the cheapest epic versus the most expensive epic? Finding those margins helps you find not just the best price, but the best value. And I hope that this video has been helpful. And I hope that this video has been helpful for you in that context. If it has, let me know by dropping a like or a subscription or a comment. Let me know if you've bought any of these cards and which cards you're most excited about. I think these epics that I mentioned are the 4 best: Warwall, Leolin, Blazebeard, and Lucky. I give special mention to Hodler and Songgale, but yeah, there's some other beasts in here. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Have an amazing day. God bless.